In a small town in Spain, two men arrive at a store. The older man goes inside while the younger one stays outside. The older man pays for a piece of gum, and at first the cashier remains calm. However, the boy outside gets distracted by some girls passing by, and the woman at the register soon realizes several bottles of liquor are missing. Grabbing a hammer, she blocks the car's path, ready to confront the young thief. Suddenly, the boy points a gun at her and warns her not to come any closer, but she continues to approach. The boy pulls the trigger and the woman screams, but there's no gun in his hand. The older man snaps the boy back to reality, calling him Ian, and quickly gets him into the car. They drive off as a policeman arrives to help the woman, but despite her cries, he finds no injury. Nevertheless, he begins to pursue the fleeing vehicle. Meanwhile, in the truck, the father scolds Ian for his reckless behavior and instructs him to make the truck less noticeable. Suddenly, the pursuing policeman sees a completely different car ahead of him. The father reminds Ian of their rules: never draw attention and never joke about family. But Ian struggles to understand why they live so modestly when he believes he can achieve so much more. He suggests he could walk into a bank, hand over a piece of paper that would be mistaken for a check. But his father insists they would be caught before they could enjoy the money, and Ian would end up in a lab for the rest of his life. As the policeman demands they stop the car, massive hailstones start pelting his vehicle, causing it to skid, spin, and eventually flip over near a gas station. But the gas station attendant acts as if nothing unusual is happening, and on the surveillance monitor, the car appears completely intact, standing upright. An unknown woman reviews footage of this strange event and congratulates her team. They finally found the boy. Back at home, Ian and his father live on an old ship. Ian dreams of a young, beautiful woman playing with a child and singing. He wakes up to his father's birthday greetings, but Ian doesn't want to dwell on memories. He tells his father he's heading to the arcade. His father gives him a gift, but Ian sets it aside.
In town, the local cop recounts his bizarre encounter with the hailstorm to a bartender, which is overheard by the perceiver, a figure with his own mysterious abilities, who then incapacitates the cop. Later that evening, a special task force surrounds the ship and infiltrates it while Vicente is distracted by the television. Adriana reveals herself, claiming to be with the agency, and treats Vicente as an old acquaintance. She demands information about Ian, resorting to violence to extract answers from Vicente. Meanwhile, Ian is at the arcade, unaware that the perceiver and two agents have tracked him down. The perceiver swiftly pulls one of the agents behind a curtain and easily overpowers him before using his radio in a disguised voice to inform Adriana that there's a perceiver in the vicinity. Adriana quickly alerts all her agents, making this their top priority. The perceiver continues searching for Ian, who is hiding behind a table. The other agency agent opens fire on him, but the perceiver simply walks away, only to reappear behind the agent, revealing the initial image was an illusion. The agent chases after the fake perceiver, while the real one raises his hand, attempting to deceive Ian. However, an agency agent suddenly places a helmet on the perceiver to block his powers. The perceiver pushes the agent away and engages in a fight in a darkened room, ultimately throwing the agent through a wall. He then finds himself surrounded by an entire team, but continues to fight them effortlessly, ignoring the VR players nearby. After incapacitating all the agents, the perceiver removes the helmet and resumes his search for Ian. Meanwhile, Ian is approached by Esther and another agent, who lead him outside. Adriana is waiting in a van and tells Ian that there are more people like him, showing him they've captured Vicente. Ian reluctantly agrees to go with them, but once inside the van, they immediately tie him up, place a helmet on him, and take a blood sample. By the time the perceiver exits, the van has already disappeared. He then creates an illusion of a stroller to make a truck stop abruptly, causing an accident. The van driver considers stopping, but Adriana insists they keep going, revealing that the truck was also an illusion. Ian later wakes up in the agency's facility, where Adriana explains their history. The agency is at war with the Conscience, a group made up of individuals with the same abilities as Ian, who have been controlling people in power for years, ensuring the country remains unchanged regardless of which political party wins. The agency's goal is to stop them and restore true democracy. Adriana warns that the perceiver will either try to recruit Ian or kill him, and asks Ian to work with her instead. She also wants the formula in Ian's blood, as it could block the enemy's powers. When Adriana asks Ian what he can project, mentioning things like people, Ian explains that creating the illusion of a person is impossible, though Adriana disagrees. She gives Ian a test he considers too difficult, but she explains that his powers are driven by strong emotions. By showing Ian a picture of his mother and mentioning his difficult childhood, Ian is able to create the illusion Adriana wanted. They're on a vast beach with an annoying fly buzzing around. Adriana then asks him to bring her back to reality, but to keep the fly in a loop, a term they use for permanent illusions. However, Ian ends the illusion and demands to see his father. Adriana takes Ian to see Vicente, who warns him that the agency will only experiment on him. But Adriana explains that Ian can look into his father's memories to discover the truth, revealing his second power. Ian enters Vicente's mind and sees a young Vicente working for the agency. During a moment of distraction caused by an alarm, Vicente took the opportunity to kidnap baby Ian. Adriana tried to stop him, but Vicente fought off the guards and escaped. Back in the present, Vicente passes out as Ian lets go of him, devastated to realize Vicente isn't his real father. Adriana confirms this, but also reveals that his mother might still be alive. Later, Adriana shares the blood test results with the American, who is curious about how Ian acquired his powers. Adriana explains that he inherited them from his parents, which was believed to be impossible since perceivers were thought to be sterile. Ian is the first person to be born as a perceiver. The American orders Adriana to get the formula and eliminate Ian, but she refuses, arguing that Ian might awaken a third power, which could be their only defense against the mule. The American, however, dismisses the mule as a myth. Sometime later, a doctor reviews Ian's test results and smirks when he sees that Ian's neuron factor is 204%. Meanwhile, Esther visits Ian in his room, telling him he's nothing more than a lab rat, and offers to help him escape. They make it downstairs, but are suddenly surrounded by guards. Esther quickly defeats them all with a baton, a taser, and impressive skill, leaving the agents unconscious within minutes. The duo tries to leave, but Ian insists they bring Vicente along because his memories hold the answers Ian is seeking. As they take Vicente and look for a car outside, Adriana realizes they've escaped and sounds the alarm. The agents rush outside and open fire, but Ian drives away at high speed while arguing with Vicente about his lies. Inside the lab, the doctor from earlier suddenly grabs a gun and shoots everyone in the room before checking the security cameras, revealing that he's actually the perceiver. On their way out, Ian uses his powers to make the guards shoot in a different direction. When they reach a mountain road, Ian's reckless driving causes the car to veer off the road and crash. Moments later, the perceiver arrives, but Ian uses his powers to make him believe there's nothing there. The perceiver, however, smiles and leaves. The trio eventually finds a motel to hide in. The next morning, Ian and Esther spend some time together on the roof before returning to the room, where they find Vicente passed out from drinking. Still seeking answers, Ian enters his father's mind again. In the memory, he sees Adriana holding a file labeled Patient Kaminsky, who was soon to be transferred to Poland. She then checked the van outside and told the driver that the formula would be injected that night. Ian tries to look around and sees a masked person missing 3 fingers sitting behind the driver, causing him to lose the connection in shock. Later, Ian goes to the bank and hands the clerk a random piece of paper while using an illusion to make her think it's a check he wants to cash. The clerk gives him the money, but as Ian leaves, she realizes the check is just a note and calls for security. Fortunately, Ian meets Esther, and they manage to escape before they're caught. Back at the motel, Esther has fun making the cash fly around the room before getting in the shower, but Ian grows concerned when he notices Vicente isn't there. Just then, he hears a car park outside, so he tells Esther to stay hidden and prepares an illusion. When the perceiver enters, he finds an abandoned room, but quickly uncovers a mirror, as illusions don't affect it, revealing the truth. Ian and the perceiver immediately start fighting as the illusions keep shifting. Ian tries to use Esther's taser and even a chair, but to no effect. They battle until the perceiver pushes Ian against the wall. After glancing at the bathroom, he looks into Ian's memories and discovers that Ian went to the bank for money because he plans to travel to Poland and find the scientist behind the experiment. The perceiver drops Ian, who passes out, and leaves. Moments later, Ian dreams of his mother until he's awakened by Vicente, who reprimands him for the bank robbery becoming big news in the city. Ian blames Vicente for lying to him and pointedly calls him by his name instead of Dad. An argument ensues, and Vicente gives Ian two options. He can either continue down this painful path or leave with Vicente. Ian chooses to go to Poland without him. Meanwhile, Adriana and the American track the serial numbers on the cash Ian stole and discover he's bought train tickets. After some time, Ian and Esther arrive in Poland and immediately begin their search for the lab. They're aware of agents nearby, but the perceiver swiftly takes them out with a few shots. When the duo locates the lab, it turns out to be an old, abandoned building. Ian quickly recognizes the room from his dreams, but insists it should be larger. He begins tapping on the walls until he hears a hollow sound. Without hesitation, Ian breaks through the wall and discovers a hidden room filled with cabinets and documents. Among them, he finds a notebook titled Project Awareness and a photograph of his mother, which brings back memories of their time together. Esther reads the back of the photo, revealing that the scientist behind the experiments is Ian's grandfather, who used his own daughter as a test subject. Meanwhile, Vicente returns to his ship and is unexpectedly visited by Adriana, who urges him to stop drinking and be a proper father. Back in the lab, Ian suddenly realizes that Esther has brought the perceiver inside, explaining that she's helping Ian find the answers he's been seeking. Ian refuses to listen and pulls out a gun, but the perceiver recognizes it as an illusion and walks straight through him. As the perceiver explores the room, he keeps encountering copies of Ian, eventually finding himself surrounded by them. Knowing they're all illusions, he looks to Esther, who silently points out the real Ian. The perceiver corners the real Ian with his own gun and drops a bombshell. He's Ian's biological father. During the Cold War, a scientist developed a formula that was injected into several volunteers, including his daughter and the perceiver. This gave them special abilities, turning them into spies capable of mental manipulation. But after the war, the government, fearing these spies might betray them, decided to eliminate them one by one. Just as hope was fading, the mule, the last and most powerful perceiver, emerged. When they tried to kill him too, he revealed a third power, mind control, allowing him to make his enemies kill each other or even commit suicide. Afterward, the mule gathered the survivors and formed the Conscience, teaching everyone to hide their powers and lead normal lives. They called him the Mule because he was sterile. All perceivers were believed to be. Ian's mother and the perceiver hadn't used protection because of this, and one day, she miraculously became pregnant. Ian is the only perceiver born naturally. At that moment, agents begin storming the building, and the perceiver orders Esther to take Ian to his house in Madrid. As they escape via the stairs, the perceiver engages the agents. He first shoots several of them without hesitation, killing many, but as more continue to arrive, he starts using illusions of spiders to distract them, allowing him to shoot faster. However, 2 agents manage to surprise him from behind and capture him using a specialized helmet. Meanwhile, Esther and Ian encounter some agents as well, but Esther easily dispatches them in a matter of seconds, even turning their own weapons against them. Then she and Ian run to the roof, where Esther demonstrates her agility by making an impressive jump and landing perfectly. Ian hesitates, but when more agents show up, he slides down a tunnel and escapes with Esther. Later, the perceiver is held at the agency's lab. After sending a robot to extract a blood sample, the scientists activate a machine to study his body, causing him immense pain. The American demands that Adriana stop the experiment, fearing it will kill him, and they still need him, but Adriana ignores the order. However, the perceiver's suffering becomes so intense that Adriana is eventually forced to stop. Moments later, a scientist brings bad news. The formula in the perceiver's body is too diluted to recover. Adriana shares this with the American, declaring that Ian is their only hope. Once the perceiver recovers slightly, he requests some water, which a robot provides. At that moment, the perceiver reveals he has the third power and, using the robot's camera, takes control of the technician's mind, forcing him to activate the robot's weapons and kill all the scientists and agents monitoring him. Then, the perceiver compels the technician to release him. In Madrid, Esther and Ian arrive at the perceiver's house, where they are greeted by a housekeeper who has a shocking surprise. Ian's mother is alive, but in a catatonic state due to the experiments. As Ian approaches her, the perceiver also arrives and explains that his mother isn't entirely gone. A small part of her mind is still trapped inside her. Ian enters her mind, and when they reunite in her memories, her physical body starts reacting. Soon, the perceiver joins them and shows Ian the memories of the horrific torture his mother endured at the hands of the agency. However, before she was captured, she implanted a memory in Ian's mind containing the formula symbolized by the toys. The perceiver wants the formula to create new individuals with powers, but when he tries to approach the toys, he is stopped by an invisible barrier. Ian realizes his mother doesn't want anyone to obtain the formula, but the perceiver continues to attack the barrier, causing her great pain. This pain forces everyone out of her mind, and back in reality, Ian sings a childhood song to his mother before she passes away. At that moment, agents swarm the house and break into the room. Overwhelmed with grief after losing his mother, Ian finally awakens the third power, enabling him to control the agents and make them knock each other out within seconds. He then searches for more agents, this time making them shoot each other to death, smiling at the sight of blood while ignoring Esther's concerns. The remaining agents, now terrified, retreat outside to regroup with Adriana. Ian follows them and forces them to kneel with their guns ready for self-destruction. Suddenly, Vicente appears, urging Ian not to let the perceiver manipulate him and warning him against committing a massacre that he'll later regret. The perceiver tosses a gun to the ground, telling Ian to kill Vicente too, but Ian is solely focused on revenge against the agency. Vicente scolds the perceiver for calling himself Ian's father when he never raised him, prompting the perceiver to shoot Vicente. This shocks Ian, causing him to lose control over the group, and he rushes to Vicente's side as the perceiver takes Esther away. With his last breath, Vicente asks Ian to enter his mind, knowing he won't survive. The memory shows that it was Ian's mother who asked Vicente to take the baby away to save him, leading Ian to apologize to Vicente and call him Dad again. They share a heartfelt moment, reminiscing about a fishing trip before Vicente's body finally gives out, and he dies. After saying goodbye to Vicente, Ian grabs the gun and sets out to find the perceiver, who is hiding at a nearby party. Ian follows Esther's voice and uses his powers to drop the partygoers to the floor, revealing the perceiver holding Esther at gunpoint. A mental struggle unfolds between Ian and the perceiver as they wrestle for control of the gun, but Ian hasn't yet mastered his abilities, allowing the perceiver to regain control of his hand. The perceiver then starts manipulating the crowd, turning them against Ian, who desperately defends himself against a barrage of attacks. Using a tray as a makeshift shield, Ian struggles as he's continuously overwhelmed, but this dire situation triggers his third power, enabling him to fight back more effectively, even using bottles to knock down his attackers. The perceiver keeps sending more people after Ian, and the last one, exceptionally strong, grabs Ian by the throat and nearly kills him. Just in time, Adriana arrives and shoots the assailant in the head. Ian then pleads with the perceiver not to harm Esther, but Adriana reveals that no one else is present, indicating that the perceiver has implanted a loop in Ian's mind. As Ian begins to sift through his own memories, he realizes that he was the one who did all the things he thought Esther did, with the loop being placed in his mind when he first encountered the perceiver at the arcade. Feeling betrayed once again, Ian breaks down in tears, but Esther assures him that her feelings for him are genuine. In a panic, Ian shoots Esther, but the bullet passes through her and kills the perceiver instead. Esther rushes to Ian, and they embrace. Later, Ian arranges for his mother's and Vicente's bodies to be buried in the cemetery. Adriana visits the graves as well and urges Ian to pick a side, expressing her need for the formula. However, Ian refuses to join the conflict and leaves with Esther to begin a new life. As they prepare to depart, Ian finally kisses Esther. Before driving away, Ian glances at Adriana, who is talking to the American, but notices that the man doesn't appear in the truck's mirror, revealing that she, too, has a loop in her mind. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to support the channel. Thank you for watching.